Item number 1, resolve approving the fiscal year 17 budget for the Lewiston School Department. Requested action to approve the resolve approving the fiscal year 2017 budget for the Lewiston School Department.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Councilor Lewiston, seconded by Councilor Joy. Discussion. Did you want to make a presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councilors. So the budget information that you have before you that went out in your packet is consistent with what the school committee did adopt last night, rather late, but it was adopted. And just to reiterate the changes from what you had seen and approved earlier. The total budget was reduced by $19,000, and there was a reallocation that allowed the addition of a library ed tech position, which will allow all elementary school libraries to be staffed every day. There's no reduction in the local tax revenue because that would have lowered it below the min required local share, and there would have been a penalty. So what we did was we lowered the expended funds, the carryover, by $19,000, which will be available next year to reduce local tax revenues otherwise. That's the essence of what was adopted.
Councilor Chance?
Were there any reallocation of budget items, spending? How might that have broken down last night versus the previous budget that went to the polls?
What was finally approved, the only reallocations are the ones that I mentioned, and netted in there was the elimination of some amounts for Martell and Longley summer programming, because we 2 weeks ago were awarded a grant to cover that, so that's why we were able to make those adjustments. At last night's meeting, there was a motion that would have resulted in a much more substantial reallocation of a couple $100,000, and ultimately that was not approved.
What's the dollar amount of the grant that was used for the reductions in Martell and Longley?
Right. The grant that was received mirrors it's a 21st century grant, which we've had for a number of years as well to fund the programs at the middle school and at the high school. And it's a substantial grant to expand the summer and after-school programming at Longley, and to, for the first time, have similar programs at Martell. And my recollection, it's a six-figure grant for each of 3 years, and I don't want to say the wrong number, but it was substantial, $150,000 a year for 3 years.
What was the first year of this grant?
My recollection is at least $150,000.
I mean, was this the first year of the grant?
It will be come July 1.
Okay, so this is a new program.
It will be an entirely new program at Martell, and it will be an expansion of programs at Longley. And what had been in the city budget covering those programs for Longley totaled $31,000, and that's money that is no longer in the budget.
In the school budget,
Yes.
not the city budget.
No
You
longer,
said city budget,
no longer in the city budget.
Thanks.
the school budget.
Are we talking city budget or school side budget?
Well, excuse me. Everything I'm talking about is the school
Right.
budget,
Right.
and I think of the city side as what is covered by local tax revenue.
Good, Mike.
Thanks.
Councilor Cludier?
So Last night was, to say the least, a rough school committee meeting. Some fellow school committee members here who can attest to that. So I voted in favor of this budget, and I guess I just wanted to go through my reasoning why with the council and the public. So first of all, the revised budget being proposed tonight still meets the minimum required local share, which allows our public schools to get the maximum subsidy from the state. If we were to try and cut beyond this, it would mean a loss of $2.50 in that state subsidy for every local dollar that we tried to eliminate from the budget. So I think it's important to me that we remain at minimum required local share. As Bill mentioned, it reduces the tax levy on the Lewiston property owners by, I think, a penny for that $19,000.
For next year.
For next year. So it reduces the overall school budget for 16-17 by $19,000, and it allows that $19,000 to be carried over into the 17-18 school year, which can either be used for expenses or to reduce the property tax requirement. It allows 21st century grant money that was received after the submission of the rejected budget to fund $36,000 of the costs associated with the summer and after-school programming for Longley and Martell, as Bill mentioned. And of that $36,000 that was earmarked for those costs in the rejected budget, $17,000 of that will be used to fund an additional library educational technician, which was something that was important to myself and to other school committee members. And then that remaining $19,000 of the $36,000 will be used to decrease property taxes, as I just mentioned. And the struggle for me came in that, I understand that community members feel that these changes may not be substantive enough, and I respect that. I think at the end of the day, though, we're kind of on a tight timeline, and we needed to vote on a school budget last night, and we need to vote on that school budget here tonight at the council meeting in order to meet the June 14th referendum date. And I didn't feel like I had enough time to thoroughly evaluate the substantive changes that Mr. Martin brought forward. And I didn't feel like it was fair to the taxpayers of Lewiston to ask them to pay, to not meet that June 14th deadline and ask them to pay for an additional election date without having tried this. Especially given the low voter turnout, the number of votes shy we were of the budget passing, which was 6, and the probability of there being a much greater turnout at the June 14th election. So again, I just felt like it was worth it to give this budget another try with the limited changes, given that we have all the facts about those changes. I also think it's important to mention that for the council and the public to know that the school committee committed itself last night to an extensive series of workshops on all the issues that people presented to us as changes that they were looking to see in the budget. So I feel confident that we'll be able to dive in and take a more extensive look at those issues and suggestions that were made by community members, and that when we do that, we'll be in a better position to take those suggestions into consideration during the next budget cycle. I feel personally obligated to do that. We voted on it last night to do that. It's in the record, and I think that the public can certainly hold us accountable to looking at those things and to taking those suggestions into consideration. So I just sort of wanted everyone to know my where I am on this, and that it wasn't exactly the easiest of evenings. And we were there till midnight, just so everyone knows.
Yes, Council.
Mr. Webster, I'm going to speak to a couple of things that people reached out to me about. So I'm going to lay a foundation here with some questions and then I'll give you a chance to explain some things. What's the amount of Title I funds we get or will be getting in this budget?
So the Title I funds are not part of the budget. They are in addition to, although the state deducts it from our subsidy. But we get, it's over $2.2 million in Title I funding.
Okay, and how are we allowed to spend that money?
We are allowed to spend that money on programs supplies and positions that support improving math and reading for our students. And there's also the provision that those allocations must supplement as opposed to supplant. So they're not to be used to replace something that is already in place being funded elsewhere, but to provide services over and above what would otherwise be provided.
Would that include hiring more teachers?
Yes, hiring more teachers that are involved in reading and mathematics. It would not be something that could be used to fund a classroom teacher.
Did you use any of these funds to create more math or reading positions, teachers?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
How many?
Off the top of my head, I would say that we have, let's see here, approximately 10 math and reading coaches in our schools that are funded by Title I.
Okay. One of the direct emails I got spoke to $1.2 million of this money funding coaches/mentors. Does that sound correct? I don't know if I have the title correct.
I would not use that title. I would say they're used for math and literacy coaches. So these are teachers that are assigned to specific buildings and work directly with the teachers in those buildings to assist them in learning about the curriculum. They do not evaluate their peers. They would go into a room, observe, offer comments and suggestions. They may model some lessons. So this is considered best practice in terms of having, in terms of serving our students as best we can.
So they assist the teacher, or they assist the kids, or they do both?
They do both, but more of their work is assisting teachers. What we're trying to do is put our teachers in a better position of meeting the needs of students within the regular classroom. That's the most cost-effective way and most productive way to improve student learning.
The feedback I got on that particular program is that it was burdensome, micromanagement, and not needed. So I had some concerns about that because, as I understand it, our teachers are required to have college degrees.
That's
They're
correct.
required to pass the Praxis 1, 2, and 3 and go through a rigorous certification process through the state. Correct? Many of these teachers have master's degrees. So
That is correct.
when I look at a dollar figure of $1.2 million, and I hear that there is some resentment, I wonder whether or not that money is well spent. And I understand it's federal money, but whether or not that can't be diverted to something more useful.
So all the research says that this is the way that money is best spent. Now, if I'm a teacher that wants to go in my room and keep my door closed and not interested in having my work observed or improved with the input of others, one might oppose it. But we have had a number of teachers that have spoken to the board and have specifically pointed out how, even though they're experienced teachers, these coaches have been instrumental in helping them improve their craft and being able to expose them to best practices. The best practices of even 10 years ago are not necessarily the best practices of today. And we require our coaches to be up on the latest that's happening in reading and math and to share that with their peers in their buildings. And we've been doing it now for 2 years. And we think we're very much headed in the right direction. And again, this is what any educational expert, and the research says is the way we should do it. Before we had coaches, we had a number of educational technicians which would pull students out of the classroom to provide one-on-one instruction or small group instruction. And as we have been doing that for years, and we found that it was not being effective and that it was detracting from the teacher's ability to educate all the students. Because if we can have that classroom teacher be effective with the students in their class, we're going to greatly diminish the need for special ed and for other specialized programs. You may or may not have heard of what's called RTI, which is a response to intervention. This is a requirement in the federal and state law to better meet the needs of students. The RTI process assumes that what's happening in the classroom is being effective for 80% of the students. That's called Tier 1 intervention. Those coaches are helping those teachers address those students in the classroom, that Tier 1. One of the reasons that we know that we need to put more focus on Tier 1 is that only approximately 40% of our students are meeting what's called proficiency by at least the measures that the state of Maine uses, and that's a far cry from 80%. The more individualized instruction is intended to service the needs of 15 to 20%, those other 15 to 20%. But to take the coaches out would mean that we're putting more resources in Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions that are supposedly designed to meet 20% of the student needs and taking away from 80% of the students in the regular classroom. I think in a perfect world, in addition to the coaches, we would have most, if not all, the positions that were approved last night, that were considered last night in some of the alternatives that were proposed. And I think that if we ultimately get the funding from the state of Maine, that those would be additional positions that will be added in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Council Lyson?
Just to follow up on Councilor Joy's issue on coaches, I've heard directly from a couple teachers of how important coaching has been to them and how it's helped them extremely in the classroom. So, and I know you shared some emails with us a while back as well of a number of other, that's Kristen, Council President Cloutier. So I think that, it's people are coming on both sides of the issue. I think some of the teachers that I've talked to are very, very supportive of this process and of increasing it. And the other thing is accountability, is obviously you tried something that didn't work, in your opinion. You've got a 2-year track record here. And I would just suggest as you're going through your workshops and whatever, that you think about maybe how do you get feedback and evaluation of that program to just make sure it's working. And anything that's new in 2 years is relatively new in the education field. And I know when we were presented with the school budget and how school has changed considerably, even within the last 5 or 10 years, I think we need to be creative and look at best practices. And I think that one of the concerns I have of opening up and reallocating money to a budget that we were pretty comfortable with approving based on some of your input about best practices. And I think it's something we obviously need to continue to evaluate and in an ongoing basis, especially when it's somewhat controversial within the community.
If I may, just to follow up on that, one of the big changes in education today versus just a few years ago is that a teacher today must be able to differentiate in the classroom, meeting the needs of students that may be at multiple levels. The more traditional model of education would be the teacher providing one lesson to the entire class. And that's a paradigm shift for for many that have been in education a long time. So that coach is helping them, provide them the resources and the professional development to be able to differentiate in their classroom and to meet proficiency-based learning, which is one of the requirements of the state of Maine. I think, and maybe you deal with this in the city side too, is what is the best professional development that you can have? We know to send someone away to a conference and then come back, by and large, is a waste of money. There needs to be follow-up, there needs to be observation in the classroom, and these coaches provide ongoing weekly professional development for our teachers and are also doing not only the individual classroom work, assisting teachers, but provide the professional development in group meetings that take place on a nearly weekly basis.
No one else?
Counselor Chance.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier about Title I. What was the figure you gave?
My recollection, and I may be off a little bit, but it's over $2 million, about 2.2, I believe.
So I've got the information here. It says Title I-A disadvantage, $2.4 million. Title I school improvement, $543,000. So it's $2.99 million under Title I in this document here. So we're just under $3 million on Title
Yes,
I.
yep.
School improvement, what exactly is that? Or what falls into that category?
So I'm not sure what you're looking at, but that may be the school improvement grant, which was, we had it at Longley for 3 years, and we've had it at Montello for 3 years. That grant expires at the end of September for Montello. It mirrors much of what Title I could also be. It's I think, a subset of Title I. And we have used that extensively at Montello to, among other things, fund we have a second bus at Montello so students can stay after school for additional help. And also we've improved the summer programming. We know that, and the research supports that, a student of poverty who doesn't have an educational experience in the summer is going to regress 2 to 3 months. And by having a summer program, that keeps them at least even.
What has been the proficiency rating over the last, say, 3 years? Where has it been going? Where is it moving?
Well, one of the problems in Maine is we have had 3 different assessments the last 3 years in terms of how they measure proficiency. So we have nothing that is comparable, but I would say that that 35 to 40% proficiency number is probably in line with what those assessments are suggesting.
So it's been flat.
Well, they're not comparable, and I think one of the things that we struggle with is our best students are opting out, and the students that are arriving at our doors are the most needy. And so I think it's real difficult for us to know what is happening. And I think when the state finally gets this figured out about what they're going to require, because even with the MEA, we had some third-grade students that were tested for as much as 12 hours, and that is just way too much.
Now, you said the best students are opting out of
Of taking the assessment.
taking the assessment, so it isn't mandatory.
It's one of those things that, one hand, it's mandatory, and the other hand, parents have the right to opt out their kids. Schools, and this is a fight that has yet to be completed because it's still in federal law that schools will ensure that 95% of their students will take the state-mandated assessment. And Maine says that to us. But at the same time, Maine has gone out of its way to say that parents have that choice. So
Do you know offhand how many, as a percent of the student body, is opting out?
we are beginning to compile those figures because we just completed this spring cycle of MEA testing. I think that the opt-out percentages this year, they're lower than last year, but the ones I've looked at so far, they have been, there are a number of schools that it's over 10% have opted out.
And I've heard from teachers in the Lewiston district who see no practical value at the end of the day when it's all said and done of the mentors. They're more of a hindrance than a help. There are a few benefits, but on the whole, the feeling is there are better things that can be done with these people.
So I'm not sure what you mean by mentors, because we have mentors that are required by
The people that go around from room to room.
the
peeking
coaches
in
you're talking
okay,
about.
coaches. Correct.
I would, I think that anything that we do in education, probably anything we do at the city, there are going to be those that favor it and those that oppose it. And I know that there's some on our board that oppose it and some among you in the council that oppose it. And you have definitely struck a nerve with some educators that promote that viewpoint. I come back to, what does the research say? What does best practice say? Maybe we can implement it better. But if the research and best practice says coaches is the best way to go, and if we are having multiple examples of teachers that are raving about the benefits of coaching, we had a couple that runs, I didn't know they were going to show up last night, that spoke before the board. I think it comes down to that teachers who are open to improving their craft, even our most experienced teachers, find a good math coach or literacy coach very helpful in them maximizing what they're able to do in the classroom, because curriculum changes, what's happening in education, our coaches, we require them to be at the top of their field, and they are imparting that knowledge on other teachers in the building. So the teachers can teach, and our coaches can bring to them what is indeed the best. So there may be some coaches that could do a better job, and that's something we need to work on. But I think...
Now, how many years of experience in teaching do these coaches have on the whole versus some of the teachers that they're coaching?
The people that are coaches are experienced teachers. That doesn't mean that there aren't teachers in the buildings that don't have even more experience. And keep in mind that coaches provide the professional development in group trainings and what have you in buildings. But we're not, if a teacher doesn't want to invite a coach into their classroom, they don't have to. Those coaches are there to assist, and the majority of teachers are finding them very helpful, and are inviting them into their rooms regularly. But there's
Have you done a survey with the teachers to get that information as far as a majority, or is it just a feel that you have?
Well, it's information that has been relayed to me from our principals and the coaches that I've talked to. We have not done a formal survey. But again, almost irrespective of what a survey is not going to change what is best practice. And if we're not implementing best practice in the best way, then we need to address that. And if someone has a concern, because part of a successful coach is developing a relationship with the teachers, because we want teachers to feel comfortable. Teachers, they don't want to go to their principal and ask for help, because their principals are evaluating them. They don't want to appear less knowledgeable than, they want their best face. The relationship a good coach has with a teacher is that they can one-on-one share concerns, share joys, challenges, and have that in-depth conversation that's going to result in improvements in the classroom. So if someone opposes coaches, show me the research. Show me what educators across the country are saying how we should be better using our funds. And to the best of my knowledge, that isn't out there.
And another observation, and thank you for that discussion. At our joint council school board meeting months ago, I believe it was in February or the spring, pretty much my comments were, given the state minimum local share, that it would be best to find the best possible use of those funds versus increasing the budget beyond that. And what I've heard in the last week has echoed similar sentiments, that how this school budget is put together with the funding that we have available is critical, and it seems to me the most important issue in the minds of the voters from what I've seen. So there's a lot of concerns I've heard. I have concerns about how things are being done, and I believe that's the concerns of the negative feedback I've got from the public and from what I know of the school board members who had a different take on this budget. So I think that's the critical factor, and that's what I'm going to be looking at going forward tonight. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm good.
Child Soul, 135 Bartlett Street, Lewiston, Maine, age 63. Since 2008, we've been voting on this budget question. 8 years has gone by, and this is the first time that the public has voted it down. To me, this is an affront by the Lewiston School Superintendent. It's a slap in the face to the people that voted, and I believe that it is being rushed to the 14 June election. People wanted significant change. Just because you lost one doesn't mean that you get to try to cram it down a public's throat in regards to rushing it to the 14 June ballot. Mr. Webster, if you could please take a stand, I'd like to ask you questions regarding how many meetings you had that the public could attend in regards to your revised budget. I thought it was 2.
We've had probably 15 budget meetings since the 1st of March. And
I'm not
we've had,
discussing that. I'm discussing it after the defeat of the last budget, not how many you had all year. I'm talking regarding, I attended the meeting last night at the school board. You had some significant opposition in regards to going forth with this 14 as a number of your more significant result as far as...
Mr. Soul, this is really not the proper venue for this. Okay, if you have something to say,
Okay.
say it to the council.
Okay.
This is not the school committee meeting.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So,
Okay, well, in that case, I'd like to speak to the public. This is the first time that it's been
the
voted
public,
down.
the place you really should speak to the
Okay,
public is at the
good.
school committee meeting.
Vote, I'm telling, vote no on all 3 questions, and if you're a renter, you better vote because your taxes are going up. I've equated that it's a $7 million increase to the public, and if you do not vote, your rent's going up and your property taxes. They should have taken more time and not bum rushed it to the
Thank you.
14th June.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tina Hutchinson, and I live in Wood 7. I have addressed the school committee at every single budget meeting. Now I'd like to ask you to return this budget to the school committee and not chance putting it on the June 14th ballot. In order to save the $4,000 that they want to say for the special referendum, they are putting in jeopardy the new school. We are now going to be asking the voters 3 questions on the school, costing over $100 million. Where are your priorities? Separate the two, send the budget back to the school committee, have it be a second referendum at a later date, and don't put in jeopardy all 3 aspects, which is going to cost the taxpayers money across the board. If the new school gets defeated, then we are losing money because money has already been spent on this school. I believe the total for the fields was $300,000. Where are we going to come up with that money if we lose it because we vote down the school? And it could happen if we ask the taxpayers for over $100 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the council. Council Bouchard.
I think first I want to know where Chuck and Tina read my notes from. I think to send the same budget back to the voters, essentially, as a voter, I'm quite offended that that's happening. I think it's irresponsible of the school committee to do that. I think putting the new school project in jeopardy, which I feel very passionately about that school, being on the building committee, and the fields, putting that in jeopardy is also very irresponsible. The voters just said no to a school budget, and I don't care if 5 people turned out. A percentage of people who care in this community turned out, and they voted no. To send them the same budget back is a slap in the face. As a voter, I'm offended by that. I'm not going to vote to send this budget back. I think it needs more time. It needs to be worked on. It's been said here tonight more things than it need to be considered and worked on. We don't kick the can down the road till next year. You bring the voters a budget that is correct, that is right, that is done. That's what's fair to the voters. Do I want to spend another $4,000 and have another election? No. But it's unfair to the voters to send them this back. And I'm not voting yes today because we want to send a budget back out of expedience. Let's do this budget correctly and then send it to the voters, because that's what they asked us to do when they voted no, whether it was by 6 votes, 1 vote, or 100 votes. That's what they asked for. So I'll be voting no tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Bean.
I just wanted some clarification on what happens if the budget doesn't get accepted by the council tonight. We would have to have, and we send it back to the school committee. What happens then? When do we have to have another referendum? I mean, who knows?
Well, you always have to have a referendum. At some point, there has to be a referendum. And that referendum has to come after the school committee and the city council have approved the budget. If no budget is adopted, the prior year's budget goes into effect, and you keep doing that until you get a budget adopted. You may recall that happened either 4 or 5 times last year in Lisbon, where they went through that iteration. So it requires, for a budget to be adopted, it requires the school committee to approve it, and the council to approve it, and the voters to approve it.
So, if I just, there is a provision in law that requires that a budget go back to voters again within 45 days. I don't recall what the ramifications if that did not happen. I think the challenge for, the council sets the total amount for this budget, and if one of the challenges is that we are hiring, we have open positions, classroom teaching positions, and the uncertainty is a challenge. So if something isn't adopted tonight, I would hope that we would have a vision to do it very quickly. But what's presented to you is, and it was not unanimous, it was a 5-3 vote, the budget at minimum required local share.
I just wanted to say that I have heard from some constituents, and I heard people talking tonight, and there is a lot of frustration. I think some of it is that well, it's hard to understand all these issues, because being a neophyte myself, I didn't understand exactly what would happen if the budget was rejected. And, but I'm glad to hear Councilor Cloutier mention that a lot of the frustrations that people are feeling are going to be looked at in the coming year, and they might not even require any monetary financial change, but I think that's holding out some hope that we can arrive to some consensus and enlighten people, just so that we know why the decisions are being made. Like, for instance, with the coaches, I know that most people I talked to were united on one thing, and that's they want the best for the children of Lewiston. And also, the big issue, I thought, was smaller classes. Of course, that costs money. So I'm inclined to vote tonight for the budget as it was given to us tonight, just based on those, from what Councilor Cloutier was saying, that we're going to address some of the issues that came up.
And Counselor, if I could just share one other bit of information that may be new for you, is that even if the council does approve this budget, and if it is approved by voters, which is an if, the school committee still has the ability to reallocate up to 5% of any article. So the questions that have been raised can continue to be raised and can be adjusted if that is the decision of the school committee.
First, Councilor Joy.
I want to echo some of the things Councilor Bouchard said. When we had the joint meeting a couple of months ago, I said I expected a lot more scrutiny and a lot more work. I'm not satisfied with some of the feedback that I've gotten from the community that's been done. Also, this is a $68 million budget. $68 million. We don't rush it to referendum so we can save $5,000.
Councilor Lyson.
Yeah, obviously the council voted to support a very similar budget. I mean, the changes, in fact, are more positive to both the tax base and to services being provided at the schools. I think that was a unanimous vote of this council. Am I correct? Not a lot has changed. I was there for part of the discussion last night on the budget. A 5-3 vote is obviously 5 members of the school committee are suggesting and recommending that we pass this budget. I'm also happy that we have a resolve that will urge Lewiston voters to support the construction of the new elementary school at Franklin Pasture tonight, so that it's clear to the voters that this city council believes, and I hope that that resolve will pass. I will be supporting that resolve as well as this budget proposal. And I think I would just suggest to the school committee, I know going through our budgetary process, not everybody agreed with everything. We came to consensus on some stuff. To me, the reallocation, great if you can do some of that after the budget's adopted. But I would like to see that process, have the school committee really deal with the issues that are necessary and come up with consensus on a spending plan that meets the needs of our students and our community. And obviously, I don't agree of dropping the budget below the state minimum local share. I think that's irresponsible. I think that maybe that's something that can be part of the educational process before the election, if in fact this budget is passed and set up for the June 14th or whenever it goes, is that people have to understand, and I hate to create a budget based upon a number and then say, it should be based upon the needs of the community. And I think we need to look to other resources to bring into this community. I had some discussions last night about some potentials, and hopefully that we can look at those and revisit those. You even talked about some additional Title I funds that we could get as well. So I think that this budget is, with all of the moving pieces and with all the discussions that I heard, at a number of school committee meetings, some joint with the council, I'm supportive of the budget, but I also want to be clear that I'm also supportive of the resolve. I think the new school, the new school, I think is an important vote for this community to take. I think that we'd be remiss in not moving forward in that direction. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for this community. So I want to make sure that at least in my case, that they're clear that I support this budget. Nothing's perfect. Most taxpayers who own their own homes will see a reduction in taxes regardless of this, budget increase. That's important because a lot of taxpayers have a difficult time, and that we need to kind of bring this new school aboard as well. And it's time to do both. I think they're in the best interest of the community. I think we can afford it, and I'll be voting for both of those. Thank you.
Madam President.
So I just would echo, I think, a lot of what Councilor Lyson said, and I also will say that I thought this was the right budget when I voted on it the first time around, and I have sat through several school committee meetings as a member of that committee, and I sit here today and I feel like it is the right budget this time around.
Any further discussion?
I think it would be irresponsible of us to expect the school committee to solve all of there aren't that many problems. I'm sorry, I didn't want to imply that, but to solve some of all the frustration that people are feeling. I think it's bad. We can't please everyone, but we have to listen to people. But it would be impossible for us or for the school committee to truly look at issues in a careful, considered way, and actually do what's best. For instance, as you were saying, best practice. So if we think that just because we vote down this budget, which is, as Councilor Lyson said, is not perfect, but it's a good budget, and it doesn't. Most homeowners won't see a tax increase, and give the school and the school committee and the parents a chance to go over other issues after we pass the budget. We don't wait until all the issues have been resolved to pass the budget, because we probably won't have a budget in the next 10 years. I don't know, but these issues can be taken care of, and we can take care of them in a very thoughtful way. And I don't think that would happen if we send back another budget and we try to nitpick everything. So I think the responsible thing to do is to vote on this budget, yes, and send it for referendum to the public, and then go over all the other issues as we go along next year.
Councilor Chance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few final comments I have. I think haste makes waste, and from the indications I have, there are school board members who felt this was haste, didn't quite understand all the options, didn't have the time to look at the whole picture and really dig into these issues that the school board is dealing with. I don't believe this is a case of you got to pass it to know what you can change. We shouldn't be doing that. If we're doing that out of expedience, as was mentioned before, we're doing it wrong. This is an issue that the voters care about. Obviously, this has never happened before, failing at the ballot box. There's something happening. And by the way, the turnout in the last vote for this referendum was higher than it's been in many years. And I don't see that being reported. It was deplorably low, but it's improving ever so slightly. If that trend continues quite a bit more, things will be on the right track voter-wise. This budget is flawed, and I think the attitude shouldn't be we can't get it right, or we can't do the best job. I think we can, and I think the voters have spoken. I voted for the last budget, and I voted to pass it. But in that short period of time, basically my eyes have been open to what the public is feeling. I think people were kind of flying low before that. And with my eyes opened, I'm seeing a lot more of this and contemplating a lot more aspects of it than I did before. And I thank the voters for doing that, and that's what the voters should be doing, reminding us where we need to get back on course and what we're doing that isn't quite what they want. So I think this is an expedient, hasty process at this point. I think it should go back to the school board. I agree with Ms. Hutchinson. And, my mind was changed. Mr. Soul almost convinced me to vote for this, but I'll be voting against it.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
I just want to clarify, too, I'm not advocating that this budget goes up, this budget goes down, or that it gets reallocated. All I'm saying is the voters already said no to almost exactly what we're voting on today, and to send it back is a disservice. I'm just one vote at the ballot box, and I will go, so I don't make the paper, Scott. I'll be there. But I'm not going to do that disservice to the community that just told us they didn't want this. I'm not sending it right back to them almost identically. That's extremely irresponsible.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
No.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
No.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 to 3.